Truth or Consequences, New Mexico is a 1997 release crime drama directed by Kiefer Sutherland.
Vincent Gallo plays Ray, who is a recently released convict. He's done 2 years in prison for his boss, Eddie. And when he comes out, Eddie gives him a job in a warehouse moving crates around. So Ray's not very happy with this, thinks he's sort of owed a bit more for spending 2 years in prison. Rather than asking him for another job or a raise or something like that, he decides to rob him. So along with his girlfriend and a couple of dodgy friends, they go to the warehouse, expecting it to be empty, but unfortunately it's not. Eddie is in there along with another guy. So yeah, they have to sort of, force him at gunpoint to hand over the drugs, basically. There's a suitcase of drugs, so that's what they're going to steal and hope to sell on. One of his friends, by the name of Curtis, is played by Kiefer Sutherland. He's a bit trigger happy, a bit nuts, so he starts shooting and kills Eddie and the other guy, who just so happens to be an undercover cop. So, yeah, not great. So they leg it, shoot some more cops outside, and then they're on the run. The DEA and the police and the mob are on their tail. They are heading for Mexico, as is always the case in these films. You get to Mexico. I mean, I don't know, are people really home free when they get to Mexico? Do the Mexican police not care about these criminals coming into their country?
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's where everyone always goes, isn't it? I guess it's easier than getting into Canada, I suppose. But
Where
would
we go? Cornwall, I guess.
Isle of Wight.
Yeah. Guernsey.
The Shetlands. Anyway, there's the tale of them on the road, and at some point they need to change cars because obviously they're in Curtis's car, but it's quite recognisable. So they hijack a couple who are driving a motorhome, and take the couple along with them as well as hostages.
Yeah, so this is now our 4th week. Lucky you get 5 weeks of Tarantino-esque films. So this is our 4th one. And interestingly, unlike last week's, which was Red Rock West, which was not really Tarantino-esque, this one is like full-on Tarantino. Yes. I think this is our most Tarantino-esque film of the month. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we shall find out. I'd never seen this one before, actually. I mean, it's kind of from the get-go. I mean, you can kind of take lots of... I mean, Reservoir Dogs, the shootout outside, they do the job and then they go out and have this big old shootout with the police because, of course, one of them the policeman was wearing a mic. He was all mic'd up, and so they go out and all these cops arrive and they shoot out, very much like Reservoir Dogs. Yeah. When they take the 2 hostages, I was kind of thinking of... I kept expecting vampires to turn up because it felt like From Dusk Till Dawn, in the motorhome. And then other town. I mean, it's full of, there's the torture scene with like a classic quirky pop song in the background. Reservoir Dogs. There's a big old shootout in there between like cops and bad guys and all kinds of people kind of get caught up in the crossfire, which is a bit true romance. So there's lots of kind of Tarantino all over this film. I'm not going to sit here and accuse Kiefer Sutherland of ripping off Tarantino because it's okay, this film. I have to say, for a lot of it, I found myself getting kind of increasingly bored because. I mean, one thing it also does is it does the long drawn out dialogue scenes, which kind of went on and on and on at times, and it's also very thought. There's lots of kind of thought provoking chats going on. It's very philosophical, talking about kind of. I mean, obviously the film is called Truth or Consequences, and so it's about truth and it's about consequences of your actions. There's a lot of this kind of bite-sized kind of thought processes going on, chats about stuff, which kind of go on and on and on, which obviously Tarantino is very good at, but he seems to kind of know when to cut it. Yeah. There's a lot of that in here.
I mean, they're kind of trying to lean on the pop culture references because the Twilight Zone gets mentioned for it doesn't really advance the plot. I mean, there's this thing about I think he's been told some story by a friend, and then everyone else says, well, actually, that's a Twilight Zone episode, and that keeps coming up again, doesn't it? And
then there's also
reference to Yogi Bear.
And there's a whole scene where they kind of talk about the food they're eating, which is also very Pulp Fiction. I mean, it's not completely devoid of credit, this film. It's certainly entertaining. Although there were moments where I thought, when's this going to end, And it literally is kind of scene, song, scene, song, scene, song, scene, song. And it was kind of like, we'd have a scene of dialogue, and I was like, come on, just get to the next song. Kind of montage with a song over it. But it's got a great cast. I mean, that's got, it's like Kiefer Sutherland got all his mates. Kevin Pollak's in there. Of course, he was in A Few Good Men with him. We've got a great cast with Rod Steiger, Martin Sheen are in there. Two, great actors of the 20th century. John C. McGinley is in there, he's not in there very long, but he's great in the part he's in. It's a really good cast. I mean, that's, I think, what it's got going for it. It wasn't terrible. I thought, there were, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Kiefer Sutherland. Many of his films, growing up, Lost Boys was one of my favourite films growing up. Flatliners, he's excellent in. Young Guns. He's a really good and accomplished screen actor. He's not such an accomplished director, and I think that's kind of what let it down here. But there's good stuff in here. There is good stuff in here.
Yeah, it's not. I didn't choose it because this is a great example of a Tarantino-esque film. I picked it because it's very Tarantino-y, but also no one ever talks about it particularly. So
no, not at all. No.
So I just thought, why not? And I hadn't, I saw it years and years ago. I remember it not being that great, but I couldn't remember a lot about it. So I thought, give it another go. I mean, it's trying very hard to be cool and not really succeeding. The characters are pretty dumb for most of it. Particularly Kiefer's character, he's just really annoying and just ridiculous. If not for him, they wouldn't have any problems, really, would they?
No,
he is the cause of most of their problems. Yeah. Because he's just completely a complete loose cannon, just does whatever he wants, doesn't care what anyone else says, just happy to kill whoever is around, doesn't care.
Although he does get a cool kind of Pulp Fiction John Travolta dance scene, which I thought that's cool.
Yeah.
It's full of like plot holes. There's like plots that don't go anywhere. So you've got Mykelti Williamson, who most people will probably know from Bubba from Forrest Gump in there. So he's one of the friends of Ray, played by Vincent Gallo. And there's something kind of comes out about this character without giving spoilers. I won't give spoilers. So something comes out about this character, but then that never really goes anywhere. In fact, there's an interesting point when you find out about this character is the very moment that Kiefer Sutherland starts getting suspicious about this character. But that never really goes anywhere. No. Just kind of that never comes. It comes about once more later on with Ray's character, with Vincent Gallo's character, but it doesn't really go anywhere, that plot line. Then this whole kind of story with Kevin Pollak and his girlfriend being picked up, that doesn't really. That they do go into that story.
I mean, that's almost a bit California-like, isn't it?
Yeah, I was thinking that actually was another film like California. I mean, that goes kind of. They do go quite far into him. Obviously, he's like, they're a bit like the kind of hostages that start liking the bad guys, and there's things going, but it resolves itself, but not really, and just feels like a lot of stuff in here feels a bit tacked on. I felt, and not great writing. I mean, last week we did Red Rock West, where I think the dialogue was supreme, very well written film. Here, not so much. I mean, it was written by Brad Murman, who I think biggest claim to fame was Body of Evidence. So yeah. I mean, it was not terrible. I think it's entertaining. I think it's worth watching for. It's kind of worth watching for Martin Sheen and Rod Steiger. Rod Steiger's scene is great. That sequence is actually really fun. I mean, at its heart, it is four criminals who are up to no good, as criminals usually are, going on the run, trying to get away, but then tacking on all these other like plot lines, all these other characters, which I think kind of bulks it down a little bit. And then there are scenes like there's a scene near the beginning where they're kind of like they're just like sitting in a field having a smoke. And then after that, there's a scene between Ray and Addie, his girlfriend, played by Kim Dickens. And they're like, he's by a tree, but the acting is pretty terrible. But they're all great actors. They've all done perfectly good films. They're all perfectly accomplished, good actors. But I think that's the trouble. If often they talk about kind of directors act or actors directors. In fact, a lot of times actors directors tend to be directors that have been actors before because they understand the art. But I think, I don't want to kind of put Kiefer Sutherland down because I respect him so greatly as an actor because I love his work. But I just think in this, I think he stick to your acting because
don't give up your day job.
Don't give up your day job. No, which he didn't. Because he went on to be Jack Bauer.
Yeah, exactly. Legendary TV character.
Yeah,
I mean, I love 24.
He's had an incredible career. But some people you can't do everything. He gave it a shot. Yeah, and like I said, I think a lot of these people, it's almost like he just got a bunch of friends together, put a bit of money down, and was like, let's go out and see if we can make this film.
Why the hell not?
Why the hell not? What else is there to do in life?
Exactly.
When just go and have some fun. And like I said, it's not without merit. It is quite entertaining at times. There are moments in here which I did enjoy.
I don't know if I've ever seen Vincent Gallo in much. I mean, he hasn't made a huge amount of films. Obviously, he directed his own films as well.
Brown Bunny.
I mean, I think his career took a bit of a dive after that. But I mean, I've never seen that. I don't know if I've ever seen any of his other films. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, he's quite an interesting actor, and he's kind of got a sort of a wounded puppy dog look to him. Obviously, he's been inside, and it works with mob guys and drug dealers. He doesn't really seem the type, perhaps, to do that because he's a bit too nice, really.
His face, his look, he kind of reminded me a little bit of John Hawkes, who was in From Dusk Till Dawn and many other great films as well. Kind of, slight seedy maybe. But I think I know him from Buffalo 66 with Christina Ricci. I saw years and years ago, which I think it was okay. But I think he's cropped up in a lot of independent art house type films, more that. And I assume he was maybe a friend of Kiefer Sutherland. But yeah, it's kind of an odd. They're kind of like these people that you like. I suppose they met in jail. But did they get on in jail?
Well, this is the thing, Kiefer is so crazy, and Vincent Gallo's character isn't. So it's like, why do you hang around with him?
Yeah.
When he's that unpredictable, why would you take him on this job? Even Addy at one point says, why don't you just ditch him?
Yeah.
So finally someone talks sense in the film. But no, he doesn't want to. They carry on. So
yeah, like we said, it's not great, this one. I mean, it's one that doesn't, probably won't get a lot of accolades, or didn't get a lot of accolades at the time, didn't make a lot of money at the box office.
No.
I would say watch it for the cast. I think it's also got Max Perlich, who is an actor that I recognise. He's one of those actors that I think cropped up in a lot of things in the 80s and maybe early 90s, still around today. Yeah. I mean, I know him mostly from Ferris Bueller. He's one of the kids in that. I think he's in a classroom.
Oh, scene. Yeah. I mean, I know him from Homicide: Life on the Street, which was out around the same time as this.
Right.
It's a TV series.
Yeah.
And that was one of my all-time favourite TV shows. Yeah, he looks much the same. He wears the same hat in the film as he does in Homicide. So whether that's like his thing, I don't know.
But so anyway, you bought this on DVD, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I mean, I had a ex-rental VHS many years ago. Yeah, I mean, I think I picked it up because it had Kiefer on the front. I was like, Kiefer Sutherland's directed something. Let's check that out. I mean, I probably watched it late 90s, I guess. I can't remember exactly when I bought it, but I haven't watched it since, so I don't have a VHS player anymore. I've probably still got the VHS in a box somewhere, though. But I thought I'd pick it up on DVD, and it cost me, I think it was like £2.50 or something from Music Magpie. Not particularly hard to find. Probably out of print, but because it's something that not anyone's really that fussed about, it's not hard to pick up. So there's no extras or anything on it. I mean, it was released on Blu-ray in the US, like a double feature with the Replacement Killers, the Chow Yun-Fat film.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, kind of a strange pair. I mean, obviously they're both. I mean, I guess you could call it an action. Well, it's not really an action film, is it?
There's actions. There is action bits in there. I mean, it's a crime thriller.
Yeah,
with action bits and too much dialogue. So that's probably it.
But it's not got like massive explosions and car chases or things like that. So I wouldn't strictly call it an action film. So yeah, it's a bit of a strange pairing, but
And we should also point out that it's quite a bizarre name. So it is titled Truth or Consequences, NM, New Mexico. So there is actually a town.
There is, yeah.
It's obviously it's referenced in the film, but in real life there is a town called Truth or Consequences in New Mexico. But the interesting thing was because I was watching the film, I was like, is that actually a place? And I looked online, it was. I was kind of expecting. I was all excited because I was expecting some like amazing history of why it's called Truth or Consequences. Maybe it goes back to like the Old West or something like that. But no. Apparently they renamed it in a radio contest I was like, oh, that's totally ruined all the kind of excitement about it. But it's still a cool name. I think it's a cool name. And it's actually, if anything, Kiefer Sutherland made a film about that town. No one else did that.
No.
He did that.
Okay, put it on the map, literally.
Literally. So, yeah, I mean, it's not... You know, there are a lot worse films out there.
Yeah.
A lot worse films out there, and it's got some entertaining stuff in there, and it's got a great cast. I mean, you know, watch it for the cast, if anything. So that was Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, let us know in the comments below.
Hit the subscribe button up there, and don't forget to push the bell for notifications. There's other videos to check out over there. Come and find us on social media, and join us again next week for another video.